So there's no question that we are living in a fundamentally disrupted new media age. At TRA, we believe that though the technology and channels we use to communicate with people have actually changed, how we communicate with people follows the same rules that it always has. So we know from the latest developments in cognitive and marketing sciences that communications need to actually drive an emotional response in people to be successful. Emotion sells, emotion persuades, and ultimately trying to differentiate is pointless. So in some way, we see communications as having gone full circle to that advertising style of the 1970s and 80s. So if you think of something like Jaguar, which was very sexy in its advertising style, and it encouraged people to feel rather than to think. At TRA, we're always looking to understand the emotional response that people have to a piece of communications in what we do. So we now know that people process communications in two distinct ways. First, what we call high conscious processing, and second, what we call low unconscious processing. There is a strong argument for the effectiveness of low unconscious processing, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So though people may not actually recall seeing a piece of communication, so if you think about subliminal advertising as a really good example of this, it may very well be affecting their brand or behaviour in the future, given the right context which triggers that memory. So though people may not actually recall seeing your piece of communications in a survey, that's not actually necessarily a scary thing, as long as your brand and behaviour metrics are moving in the right direction. We see a role for two distinct styles of communications in this new media landscape. First, there's the big brand campaign. This is all about creating brand saliency and also a sense of emotional connection to the brand. Second, it's the more targeted, granular messaging, which is personally relevant to people and reinforced by what they see in the big brand campaigns. So we know from the work that we do that communications that are consistent in their approach are those that are most successful. And that's because what they do is they build a set of distinctive assets for the brand and create mental availability. So at TRA, it's our job to understand how salient your brand is, the distinctive assets that it owns, and also the relative strength of those assets. We are always guided by the creative brief. We talk about that being our North Star in terms of assessing how successful a piece of communications has been in terms of what it originally set out to achieve.